everyone, and welcome to a special edition of Facebook Live with the WKU Educational Leadership Doctoral Program. My name is Dr. Corie Martin. I'm here today with Dr. Tony Norman, who's the director of the program. We're on the lovely set of Cooking 80/20 with Robin Shea on the campus of Western Kentucky University. So today we're going to be speaking to you about the WKU EDD program, and we're really excited to give you more information about this great program. Perhaps you might be interested in pursuing your doctoral education. The EDD program was the first doctoral program of its kind on WKU's campus. It's been in existence for about 10 years now, with over 100 graduates and about another 120 coming down the pipeline right now. So we hope that you'll ask questions in real time. We would be delighted to answer your questions today. So with that, I'm going to jump in and ask Dr. Norman some questions here. So tell us, what is an EDD and how is it different from a PhD?
Well, interestingly enough, if you were to go out and do a Google search or perhaps Wikipedia and look for distinctions between EDDs and PhDs, there's a lot of debate about that. But at least the original idea was that a PhD would be more geared for people who wanted to work in theoretical areas and that actually were planning to move into a very specialized area and become faculty or researchers. EDDs were intended from the very beginning to be much more practitioner scholar based. It was the idea that there were people who wanted to have an in-depth knowledge, but they wanted to then turn that around and actually further their field in terms of either whether it be leadership or in some other area.
Okay. So who would be interested in obtaining an EDD?
Well, at least for our program, because it's educational leadership, there are a lot of people who are somewhere mid-career. They have some new opportunities that they've been exploring for a little while, but as they're thinking about the next leadership opportunity, they're looking around and saying, how am I different from so many others? The other people who might be interested in this opportunity have about the same amount of experience that I have. They've been with the company as long as I have, or with the organization. So how do I stand out? And one way to do that is to be able to say, well, I've gone and actually prepared to become an effective leader. And since most people are already at master's level, this postmaster's opportunity is an educational leadership doctoral program.
So you're working on right now building the fall 2018 class for the doctoral program. And you've got an April 1st deadline.
Yes.
So if someone was interested in this program, could they call and speak to an advisor, or how would that work for them?
Certainly. We have an office coordinator, Josiah Super, who is very friendly and who'll be glad to answer any questions that students might have. Phone number is 270-745-3061. And if people are interested in the program, April 1 probably seems a little bit closer than people might think about in terms of applying, and there are a few pieces that they would need to get in to apply. But again, if they would go ahead and call, and if they would start the application process, they hit our radar screen, and as we get ready to bring together the admission committee, we actually contact those who've applied and try to make sure that are they intending to apply, and we let them know what they're missing in order for them to be fully vetted in terms of application.
Okay. So a number of years ago, I myself was part of this program,
Yes.
and there are 4 different specializations, right? So I think for some of us, we hear educational leadership doctoral program, and we assume that it's just simply for people who are interested in education, but that's
Correct.
actually not the case, right? So explain to us what those 4 specializations are.
Okay, well, and again, we are an educational leadership doctoral program, and so we do have a particular focus on education. But at least from my perspective, when you talk about education, you're talking more broadly about human development. And every one of the specializations, there are people who are involved in the human development enterprise. And so we have 2 specializations that are particularly related to P12 or K12 education, and one is in administration. And that would be for people who are wanting to move into leadership positions in schools, principalship. Our program actually works better for those who have principalship or maybe perhaps looking for other opportunities such as superintendency. The certification, at least in the state of Kentucky, works very well within the program. But we also have a teacher leader specialization, and that's for teachers who are in the school system. They want to stay in the school system. They don't want to move into administration, but they're looking for new leadership opportunities to stay within the school system. We do have 2 other specializations. Another one is educational, and that's post-secondary ed. But even that one is more geared toward people who are in the service areas around university. Again, back to the PhD, EDD distinction. If someone is saying, I want to be a faculty member in an actual specialty, then we would say this program is probably not the right route for you. You want to go with a PhD in that specialty area. But if you're working in marketing, if you're working in admissions, if you're working in student affairs, so all of these service areas around an institution, post-secondary ed would make a lot of sense. But then we also have one that's kind of outside of education, but again, still related, and that is organizational leadership. With a focus on nonprofit, but we've had a lot of students who actually are out in the business field.
Excellent. So what is the difference then between the P12 administrative leadership and teacher leadership? I know you touched on this a little bit, but they do seem very similar. So, well,
they're still clearly going to be within the P12 world, but when you think P12 administration, you're thinking people who actually want to get a title such as principal, assistant principal, superintendent, or director of whatever it might be. But there are people who say, I don't really want to move into administration per se. I want to stay within actual teaching in the field. And so, but there are chairmanships of departments, especially within high schools, and there are other opportunities where one can be leading in the actual teaching rather than having to move into an actual administrative role.
Okay. I can certainly speak to the post-secondary leadership from a student perspective because I have a role working in public affairs for Western Kentucky University, and my specialization is social media. Well, obviously I can't major in social media, and not here anyway. So a lot of what I studied was leadership theory, and also being able to incorporate my expertise into the degree program. So talk about how you help students take their area of interest and incorporate it into the program. I felt like my program was very customizable to fit my needs.
Yes, and by the way, I was your chair.
Yes, you was.
And so
my mentor here.
Yes, so I helped get you through all those last gates, and you didn't need much help. I can say that. But again, it's the whole idea that people know they want to move into leadership, and they also pretty well are beginning to have a clear idea. They're mid-career. They know where they've fallen in love with a particular area and they want to grow. And so our idea is we want to provide you not so much leadership theory, even though you'll get that, but it's much more focused on that practitioner side of how will I lead effectively. And so turning leadership theory into actual leadership practice, and there are even internships embedded inside the program so that you get this chance to actually explore what leadership looks like from the perspective of actually leading.
Yes, and I actually had an opportunity. I did an extended internship with my program where I was able to work with a department on campus and help them implement a new software program for their department. So, and it wasn't a department where I worked, so I was able to really obtain a nice, rich overview of what a different side of post-secondary education was. And this also helped me speak the language a lot better too, taking classes in higher ed finance, understanding budgeting, understanding human resource management and allocation. So there really were a lot of courses that helped me understand my own position that I had. I used to often tell people that I was majoring in my own job, that I was getting a doctorate in what I do every day anyway. But I definitely can attest to the fact that it helped me grow professionally and personally as well.
And I think a challenge that a lot of people have as they aspire for new leadership positions is there's no opportunity to find a way to actually experiment with or engage with what that opportunity might look like. And so in some sense, many of us apply for that next leadership position, and if we land there, then we're going to learn on the job and we're going to make those early mistakes. This program actually provides those tools that you're better prepared for that next opportunity.
Well, and speaking of those leadership positions, so for people that are in the organizational leadership specialization, there are a lot of people that work out in the community in various different capacities. So can you give some examples of the types of organizations that those students might be working for?
Well, we've had a good number of people who've been in the healthcare professions, either medical centers or some who've actually been in healthcare faculty in community colleges. We've had certainly people in nonprofits, some in banking and finance. We've had some as well, and then some just in some of the general industries that we have around this community.
And you even have a group of students in a military installation too.
Absolutely, yes, we did. We started a cohort in Fort Knox just this semester.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what's required for admission into the EDD program?
Of course, we're looking for students who've completed their master's, and so they would need to have a record that they've completed a master's or another postgraduate degree, and they would have to submit that, their transcripts. They would be writing a statement of interest in the program, and what I encourage all students to do is to, in some sense, because we don't get to meet them before they actually start the program if they're admitted, they're wanting to tell their story. How have they developed in their own leadership capacity along the way? Where are they in their own particular journey? But then also to show that they understand the program, how do they think the program might be helpful to them in helping them achieve their next set of goals? And then we also have letters of recommendation, 3 of those from colleagues, from mentors, from supervisors who can speak to their leadership capacity.
Okay. Now, is the GRE required as part of this process?
Yes, the GRE is required, but we will take GREs in whatever form we can get them. Students often will say, I've got GREs, but they're 10 or 20 years old.
Mine was over a decade.
Yeah, exactly. So as long as they can get those to us in some type of an official form, many times they'll be on their master's transcripts from their other institution, then we can take a look at those. We know how to convert those scores. We don't have any minimal scores, but the GRE is in some sense what I consider the great equalizer. Everything else about the person that we get, transcripts, letters of recommendation, their own personal statement is a little bit more about who they are, and it might reflect the experiences that they've had. The GRE is one piece that we can see a similar pattern across students and make a judgment on that.
Okay. If you're just now joining us, my name is Dr. Corie Martin, and I'm talking to Dr. Tony Norman about the WKU Educational Leadership Doctoral Program. So we're talking about the different things that are required to get into the program. What type of student do you feel is most successful in this program?
Okay. Well, I'd say the student who has at least some years of experience behind them. We've had some students who are in their early 20s, having just finished a master's, and the first question I have is, well, what experience do you bring? Because we want you to already be on your journey as a leader, or at least within your profession, because if you get our degree and you don't have experience, it's a mismatch. You're really better prepared to be a faculty member than you are to be a practitioner. So students typically are in their 30s, all the way. We've had students in their 50s or 60s join our program. So that's what we're really looking for, is that they've got some experience to bring along with them. Okay.
One thing that I can say, one of the greatest benefits of the program from my perspective as a graduate of the program is the cohort model. Could you talk a little bit about what you see as the benefit of the cohort model and what a cohort is, and then maybe I can speak to whether or not you're right.
Yes. Well, that's interesting. And so we do talk about admitting the fall 2018 cohort. And the cohort model is the idea that all the students who come in a particular semester, and we bring in cohorts in the fall and in the spring, will take the core courses together. Of course, if you're in one of the 4 specializations, you're taking electives that fit those specializations, but there's a core course in every semester that you're taking. The whole idea behind that is that this group of students are going with you through this journey along the way. And so you have comradeship, you have those who will be with you to push you when you want to quit, relationships that you will form that will help you through doing some of the coursework and some of the assignments. And so again, it's the whole idea that you have this group of people who will be pushing you along the way. Of course, after about 2 years, the cohorts start to fall apart because some people are a little farther behind and some are a little ahead, but at least for those first couple of years, it seems to really help students stay on course.
It absolutely does. And I can say from my perspective, you're absolutely right about that cohort really being a very strong support network of peers that can help you through that process. Because particularly as an adult learner, even if you work full time or if you have a family and you're coming back to school, it can be a little intimidating, a little daunting, a bit of a test of endurance in the very beginning. I had to take a statistics course that I hadn't had in my previous master's degree. So it was this big, scary math class for me. And my cohort absolutely pulled me through that. We worked together. They really do offer a sense of comfort. Especially with the uncertainty that sort of comes with going back to school as a grown-up, because I got my master's degree in 2001, so it had been a number of years since I had been in school, and it was very, very different coming back as a grown-up with a real serious goal. So yeah, I would definitely agree.
Well, and I would just build on that the other thing I'd see is even though the cohort starts to fall apart in terms of being able to have class together, it becomes an identity point, and especially some of our students who they finish the coursework, it takes about 3 years to finish the coursework. You move into the dissertation phase, and it's a little bit of a no man's land in that you don't have classes to go to anymore, and you don't have people or faculty who are sitting there saying, why haven't you turned this in? You have to be self-motivated, and the cohort is often the group that comes alongside of each other and helps people through that period where they can be accountable to someone, because otherwise it's easy to let the years pass by and you haven't finished the dissertation.
Yes, and they absolutely were and still are. I mean, I graduated 2.5 years ago now, which is hard to believe, but I still keep up with my cohort. I talk to those peers all the time, and you know, there are some people that took longer than others to get finished, but they finished.
Yes, they did.
And the fact that you are able to finish at your own pace, if that's what you need. I followed the traditional model. I finished in 3 years, which might seem a little fast for people, but I really wanted to get done. But it's possible. You know, it was very doable. You know, I'm a full-time working mom. I have 2 children, and I was able to do it just fine. So now, when is our deadline to apply for this project? Is April 1st. So you could be applying right now to be a part of this program. Now, as I mentioned, for me it was possible to work full-time and complete the program. As a lot of the classes for me were on weekends. One of them was on evenings, one was online. So talk about the flexible schedule of the program.
Absolutely. This program is designed for people who are already in the workforce and that they're not planning to stop, drop, and come to school. Again, PhD model would suggest a lot of times that that's what you would actually do, is you would go back to school full-time, be fully engaged in the university. But this program wasn't designed for that because, again, we're looking at people who are practitioners. We want them to continue to do the work that they do even as we hone their skills and help them become doing it better. And so our courses are offered on the weekends or online or some combination of that. A full-time student for us is a student taking 2 courses a semester. And so a typical semester would be 4 weekends of one course, 4 weekends of another, or maybe an online course. So a total of 8 weekends spread out across a semester for them to be full-time. And of course, between those classes, because the classes will meet on a Friday night or Saturday or some combination of that, there'll be lots of times where students will be working online together to complete assignments, and again, with their cohort.
So now, are there students traveling into Bowling Green to participate in these classes?
Yes.
And as I recall, we had folks coming from fairly far away.
We did. I used to have students from Murray, and in fact, we just graduated a student. She finished her dissertation, I think, last spring, who started with us and then moved to North Carolina And I thought we were going to lose her, but she said, no, I'm finishing this program, and she trucked it back over here and completed the program with us.
Oh, that's great.
Yes.
So then it really is possible then to work full time and obtain your doctorate and still enjoy the comforts of life and parenthood and all the joys that come along with that. And I mean, I was able to do it. Fortunately, I had a really strong support network that helped me through that. But what I will say, though, is that there have been single parents that were part of this program.
Absolutely.
And there have been people that did not have real sturdy support networks that have been very successful.
Yes. Well, and in fact, when I think about the types of students that we typically are attracted to our program, I say in the orientation class, you're people who are juggling already lots and lots of balls, and congratulations, you've decided to add one more. To the mix. And that's why the cohort model is such an essential piece, because you add that extra ball, and you may underestimate how much work that is to include that ball into your routine, and the cohort helps you stay on task along the way to say, I can actually do this. I'm already a multitasker. I'm just adding one more thing to my life, and only for a short period of time, because I have some real career goals about what I want to use this degree for.
And speaking of career goals, you mentioned before about the necessity of having some life experience, some professional experience before considering applying for a doctorate. Is that always advisable, or how would you advise a student who is just finishing up their master's degree who wants to immediately apply to begin their doctoral program?
Well, if they're talking about our program, then I would be saying go out and get a job in the area that you're wanting to be in, and spend some time there, 5-10 years. Really start to develop your own capacity, ability, your worth to the company, the organization. But again, what you will find is, if you really are diligent in your work, there are going to become these new opportunities that are in front of you. And now this is where the degree really comes in, because one, you not only get the training that you're looking for, but it adds a credential that many of your colleagues will not have that will help you stand out and have that chance for that opportunity.
So what about course interaction in between classes? So if I'm meeting on a Saturday, and we talked about this just a minute ago, are there courses in the summer, over winter term, or when do I get to talk to my professors? When do I get to interact with my other students? How does all that work?
Well, a good point that you bring up there. We talked about it being a 3-year program, but it's 3 years because we consider students going full-time both fall, spring, and summer. And so you don't really get your summers off. The courses are typically in shorter frames of time, so you do have a little bit of window of time to still have vacation and do the other things you want to do. But it's not a fall, spring only. There's a summer cohort to that. But then again, because we are trying to be accommodating to busy people, and we're only asking people to come in 4 weekends a month per course, then there has to be other opportunities for you to interact with the faculty and with the students. So we consider our program to be somewhat of a hybrid. Okay. So you go and you get your resources right now using Blackboard, and you do your readings, you find assignments there. There will often be discussion questions for you to keep interacting with your cohort and with the faculty member. And of course, our faculty, not only will they meet with you on Saturday, but we do have program advisors for each one of the specializations, and they're more than willing to meet with students and help them plan their program of study.
So the dissertation is a huge part, obviously, of this. It's how you get through a doctoral program in this case. So what if I have no idea what I want my dissertation to be, or do I have to have a topic, or do I have to do a dissertation at all?
Well, you certainly have to do a dissertation. That is part of our program, the culminating piece to our program. But we have students who, some of them come in and very early on, they already know what problem they want to tackle. And by the way, we really encourage students to come to us with real live problems that they're experiencing in their organization. It's why it's a practitioner scholar. It's not theoretical. It's about what's happening in my organization or organizations like mine, and how could I tackle this problem by studying what the literature has to say about that, and perhaps carrying out a study of a survey or an experiment or other types of techniques might be used to collect data. And so some students come in and they know from the very first class and they carry that all the way through. Others think they know the very first class and then they change their minds. And then some really, they keep accumulating the knowledge, but they really haven't settled in. Your program advisor is going to be key to that because they're going to help you focus on the idea that it needs to be something about leadership, and then also that it needs to be tied to the specializations, so something about organizations or something in the higher ed field or something out in the P-12 world, and they're helpful there. But then also at some point your program advisor is going to be passing you off to someone who will be a dissertation chair, and often that dissertation chair will help also clarify in your mind where you want to go with the topic. The thing I always caution students about is trying to find something that they really care about, because you're going to live with this topic for quite a while. And so it's sometimes people are looking for a ready-made topic, just hand me something and I'll do that study. But it's very difficult sometimes to push through all the stages of a dissertation if you don't really have a heart around the topic that you're studying.
I think I came into the program knowing exactly what I wanted to study. So I was one of those rare
Yes.
breeds that I knew, and I was very focused on that the whole time. But I did have colleagues in my cohort who had no idea and who didn't have any idea until we were done with coursework.
Yes.
So I would say my advice to students would be, don't fret, it's okay. You'll work it out. Your mentors are great resources, certainly. So, and I mentioned too that I finished the program in the exact amount of time that it was that it's set to do. But I mean, how long do you get?
Well, you actually get a 10-year window, but I start sweating bullets when it's about year 5 or 6, because really our students should clearly be done within 4.5, 5 years tops. But there are students who life gets busy. One of the biggest things I've seen happen are students who are looking for this degree to provide them new opportunities, but by the very nature of them entering the program, they get on the radar screen of their supervisors and they go, wow, this person has a lot of potential, look at their ambition, they're willing to do this degree. And so these new opportunities arise, and unfortunately I do get that phone call where someone will say, the job that I really, really wanted to have, I've already been given it, and now I need to take a break because I've got to learn this new job, and then I'm going to have to come back to the program, and sometimes they do that. And that's our biggest concern is students who, if you get too far away from it, it's easy to just say, I'm just never going to quite finish. So I spend quite a bit of time lassoing in back those students who are taking longer than I think they should be to get that degree. What I try to remind them is there's a phrase that is that a good dissertation is a done dissertation, and I know my dean disagrees with that because he says a good dissertation is one that's really good, and I agree with that. But on the other hand, I try to remind students that don't let a 121, 150 page paper stand between them and finishing their dream. They've taken the coursework, they've done everything they need to do. It's just a really long term paper.
It is.
It's really what they have to do, and there's setbacks along the way, but if they'll just keep plugging at it, they can get it done, and then they get to have that EDD by their name, and hopefully new opportunities will arise for them.
And those new opportunities do arise, and that's in the opportunities that I've had to speak to my cohort mates who have gone on to do great and wonderful things. You do have enhanced opportunities that come to you upon, during your degree program and upon completion as well. So what are some of our alumni doing now?
Okay, well, some of our alumni are superintendents. Some of them actually P-12 administrator cohort, our specialization students have actually not only gone back into the P-12 world, but they've actually retired out of that and they've become P-12 administration faculty, because that makes pretty much sense for them to do so. We've got at least a couple of community college presidents who've come through our program, some directors of technology, and then other opportunities within businesses. I think a few of ours, actually a couple of students in one cohort met and actually had new opportunities within their fields that they took advantage of, but then fell in love with the idea that they had an entrepreneurial spirit, and so they actually started a company together.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. Well, and even in my cohort, I think I was cohort 9 is what I was a while back, but we had students that were specialists in autism research.
That's right.
We had students who were specialists in underrepresented minority research, of course myself in public affairs and marketing. I mean, we had international
Yes.
people that specialized in international student research, a very diverse array.
Yes.
And I can say that, I mean, I learned as much from my cohort mates as I did from you. Just being exposed to all of these different disciplines and people that people, their rich experiences helped enhance mine. And I could learn a lot more about their fields and made me, better in my own field. So does it matter what type of master's degree that a student earns before they come into this program?
No, it really does not. In fact, I clarified that we talk about having a master's degree, but it's really a postgraduate degree because there are other types of degrees. We've had students come with law degrees, for example, and they're not called masters, but at the same time, it's certainly a postgraduate degree. And so any of those will work.
Okay. Now the program is not just all coursework, right? How does that schedule work?
Well, there's certainly core coursework, but then there's also internship experiences that students have. And then also there are dissertation hours that are part of the program as well.
Okay, so you go to class for 2 years? 3 years?
About 3.
Okay, about 3 years, and then you spend as much time as you need doing your dissertation, or
it should be about a year. It
Okay.
should be about a year.
Okay.
If you're staying on track, it could be 6 months to a year.
I think I did coursework for 2.5 years, and I wrote for a year.
Yeah.
So I think that's about average too.
Yes.
At least among the folks that I know, that they're still alive and they made it.
Well, in fact, how I think about it is the dissertation takes you about a year to write, but you get to decide what that year looks like, whether that year is split over many, many years,
yes,
or if you decide to actually do it all within one period of time.
Yes, and I mean, I can say just from my perspective, I went on vacation with my family every summer. Yes. I had every Christmas break off, which was really awesome. Just you couldn't wait for Christmas break to come, so you could just have some time to breathe and not read anything. But yeah, I mean, it's absolutely doable, and I think I did my research portion for about 9 months, and I wrote for the rest of that year.
Yes,
so
yes.
The writing part wasn't the long part. It was the research and everything that that went into that.
Yeah, it's funny. Most students, the biggest challenge for them, which is always surprising to me, but is typically it's the literature review, because it's having to go, and even with all the modern tools we have, which makes it so much more convenient, I had to actually go from building to building and go to shelves and pull stuff off the shelf and. A long time ago.
We don't have to do that
That's
anymore.
right, you don't. It's the idea of trying to gather all of the resources that you need and then put it in some type of logical order, making your case in some sense for what's happened in the field and why your question has yet to be answered or it needs to be more clarified in some way. And so I think that's the biggest challenge, because it's very lonely to be looking at a screen and resources and putting this story together. Once the story's together and you've settled on a methodology, everything else is pretty well in front of you. It's okay, now I'm going to carry out the research that I've said I'm going to do, and now I'm reporting on what I found. And that seems, once people can get past those first 2 chapters of real writing and then the chapter 3 of methodology, at least describing what they plan to do, the rest really takes care of itself.
It does. It really does. So how do I apply?
Well, you can go right to the WKU EDD website, and there's a button on there that says apply now, or you can go to graduate school. It has a place there to apply there as well. And so again, it's electronic. You'll start there. It'll shoot you over to the graduate school area, and then you'll see the doctoral program, and you'll start the process, and then it will tell you the pieces that are needed.
Great. So that's wku.edu/EDD to apply for the program. Now what else happens in the application process? So you mentioned you fill out the application.
Yes.
And you complete your statement of intent to be a
Yes.
part of the program. Is there an interview process?
No, at this point there is not. The letters of recommendation, and that's why that statement of interest is really so important, because it's your opportunity to help us understand who you are, what your journey has been, and what you hope to do. We get all of those materials together, then we have an admission committee that's made up of doctoral faculty associated with the program. We review those applications and then make decisions. And again, if someone starts a process on April 1st and we see that some of the pieces are there and not all of them, we contact the student and say, do you intend to complete the application. Sometimes students change their mind. But if they are, we work with them and help them know when all the pieces are there so that they know they're getting full vetting.
Excellent. Excellent. So if you want to learn more about the Educational Leadership Doctoral Program, you can visit them on the web at wku.edu/edd. You can email edd@wku.edu. And if you enjoyed this chat, please be sure to follow the WKU Educational Leadership Doctoral Program Facebook page, and you're at WKU EDD on Twitter as well. Yes. So thank you so much, Dr. Norman, for joining us today. If you've got questions, please feel free to send them on, and thank you for joining us today.